murder, and everything else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. Joy and I are two very old friends who love to talk about murder and everything else.
I just have to tell you this little story, Cheryl. Well, Cheryl's actually already heard this, but our listeners haven't heard this. I know I've said this in the past, but weird shit follows me around, okay? Like, if there is something weird happening somewhere, I am sure to either witness it or be a part of it. On Thursday night, I went to orchestra practice, and it's on the college campus where my kid goes to college. And I park in this one area, and then I have to walk, across a busy street and then down a little walkway, because it's like in one of the music buildings at the university. And I back my car in because I have a large SUV. And I look to the left, and there's a student sitting in their car with the windows open, just kind of like hanging out, probably, I don't know, doom scrolling or something, or listening to music or doing homework. And I'm backing my car in, I put it in park, and I notice there's a lady kind of pacing back and forth behind my car. And I'm watching her because she's like a little older than I am. She's got a lanyard on that indicates that she works at the university, and she's a backpack. And she looks to the left and the right. Now, remember, I just backed my car in, so obviously someone's in this car. And, this other lady is 2 cars over. Her window's open. She's playing music. So you can hear. And this woman literally squats down behind my car where these little, like, hedges are. And she takes a giant schnecky right back there. I mean, and I'm watching her in real time, and I'm like, wow, what are the chances that I get here just in time to watch this lady like empty her bowels in a very public place? And then she finishes her business, and she stands up, and she just pulls her pants on, and then she walks away from my car a little ways. She's still looking around to make sure no one's there.
Although you just pulled in.
Yeah, me and this other lady are clearly right there. And then she picks up her lunchbox, which is sitting like a little ways over. Remember, she's got her backpack on, her lunchbox, and she's got her lanyard. I don't know, she could have stolen the lanyard, but I mean, she definitely looks like an employee at the university. And she just heads off. And I'm left kind of scratching my head like, there's bathrooms everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand when you told me that. I'm like,
it's a college campus.
Yeah, if she's going to work, there's restrooms right inside.
Right.
Maybe it's... Yeah, and like I asked you before, the thing that disturbed me the most is how did she wipe? And you said she didn't.
She didn't, but here's the thing, guys. I spend an extraordinary amount of time on a daily basis picking up dog poop. If you're gonna poop in the wild, pick it up and throw it in the trash. Like, put it in a bag, just like I do when my dogs take a shit outside, and throw it in the trash can, because nobody wants to be walking through the bushes and step in your schnikes.
What if you picked up human poop instead of dog poop and you just didn't know it?
Well, how would that happen? Because my dogs are pooping right in front of me.
Oh, I thought you meant like going out in the yard or whatever later and pick up.
Oh no, but I found bunny poop the other day because
they look like pellets, right?
Yeah, Gabe and I can't stop Buzz from just eating dirt, and I think she's eating the bunny poop, and that's why her face gets all dirty.
Oh.
This is a conversation for another podcast, I
feel like. Well, they like cat poop, so I don't know why they wouldn't like bunny poop. They're so cute.
The Poop Chronicles, starring Cheryl and Joy.
I think we should do a whole segment on it.
But
Oh my
Cheryl,
God.
I like when you go camping, you're supposed to pack out your trash. That includes like when you go at like extreme camping, you're supposed to dig a hole and poop in the hole and
Right.
bury it.
Cover it up. Yeah. I don't know. But again, the thing that stays with me is the smell. I mean, on her. If you can't wipe, that's like, I don't
Well,
know.
maybe it
That's
was a
pretty
clean jerk.
disturbing. On that note.
Let's head into updates. Anyway, I have an update. It's a little bit of a sadder update. It's from the Golden Bachelor. Remember, we did so many episodes.
What?
Francois on the Golden Bachelor, Gary Jerry, Turner from Indiana, Gary, Indiana, Gary. Anyway, he faces more tragic news as he reveals how long he has left to live amid incurable cancer diagnosis. Anyway, I guess the doctor told him it could be anywhere between like now and like, I don't know, a certain like 5 years, which, I mean, so far he says he doesn't have symptoms, and he's able to like do his normal stuff, and he's getting things in place for when he does have symptoms. So it sounds like he's living his best life. But even though he has this incurable bone marrow cancer, it's called Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but that's how it's spelled. And
it sounded good to me.
I don't know. For those of you who need a disclaimer, I'm not an oncologist, and neither is Cheryl. But in December, the 73-year-old reality star lost his father, Everett Wayne Turner. Oh my God, at 93. So sending condolences to Jerry Gary and his family for the loss of his father and their grandfather and their great-grandfather and the great-great-grandfather. Because that guy, wow, he lived a really long time.
Oh, well, that's, yeah, I thought you were going to say like he had 3 months to live. I'm not saying that 5 years is not good.
Oh, I don't know if it's 5 years. I'm just making that up. I'm saying that the important part of the story was that his dad died.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. No, our condolences. I thought you were telling us that he only had a certain amount of time to live. Oh. Although, we all only have a certain amount of time to live. And it's interesting when you get to a certain age and you really feel like you really don't know how much time you have left. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain age where you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of life left. And then you get to a certain point, you're like, anything could happen.
Right. Oh, I guess that the suggestion has been the possible expectation of living another couple years. So,
I didn't mean to sound insensitive about his dad dying.
It turns out he has not been given a life expectancy by his doctor. Huh. Well, that scratch everything I just said in updates.
And it wasn't it was someone else's father that died. His father is alive and well. Oh my gosh. You heard it here first, everyone. Lord. I don't think there's any concern that people come here for accuracy. So we don't have to worry about that.
Cheryl, do you have any updates?
I do. So Joy, I'm going to blame you because I love to blame other people for my mistakes.
That's your update?
And it's followed up by a compliment.
Oh, okay. It's an insult wrapped in a compliment.
Yes, because I rely on you to be my fact checker and to correct me when I'm saying something wrong. And when we did the honor killings episode, I started off by saying I was looking for an Asian story about an Asian family that had honor
Oh
killings
yeah.
involved. And Asian, by Asian I meant specifically Joy is part Korean, so like a Korean story. I'm Japanese, so I was looking for Japanese. That's what I meant by Asian. And then I realized that the stories that we talked about were Pakistani people, and that is Asian, right, Joy? We talked about
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So for all of you that were rolling your eyes, when you were listening to it, I get it. But this I've only learned this in the last, I don't know how many years, that when you refer to Asians, it's what, Joy? Please educate us, because it was new to me. So when I said I was looking for Asian, and people are going to be like, this is an Asian family that you're talking about.
I'm just going to read the list. Did you know there's 48 Asian countries?
No.
Afghanistan, listen, Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Brunei, Cambodia, China, Cyprus, Georgia, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Lebanon, Malaysia, Maldives, Mongolia, Myanmar, which was known as Burma, Nepal, North Korea, Oman, Pakistan, Philippines, Qatar, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Syria, Taiwan, Tajikistan, Timor-Leste, which is East Timor, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, and Yemen.
Kazakhstan and Russia considered
part of Asia. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. There's a lot of stands.
It's all the stands are Asian.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to make that correction, because for people that are highly educated, I'm sure you were like,
but to all the idiots and morons out there listening to us, I just want you guys to know that Pakistanis are Asian. All right, dum-dum. That's a dum-dum report right there.
Oh boy.
I am rolling on to shout outs. All right. And Cheryl, I have a shout out for my friend Maria, who not only made us, let me just back up. For those of you who've been listening to us a while, you know that we record obviously before these episodes are released. And today is Easter Sunday, and Cheryl and I are recording. What?
We record these before they're released. Okay, because I don't see how the opposite could happen.
I know. Anyway, it's Easter Sunday, and yes, we are recording on Easter Sunday because my husband's sick and my kids are out of town, and we had nothing else to do. And Cheryl,
what would you be doing if Gabe wasn't sick?
I would be wearing a garden party dress and going to someone's Easter garden party. Okay? I have a whole closet full of garden party dresses. But anyway, not only is it Easter weekend, and Maria has 1 million family members in the area and 1 million children and cooking and all sorts of trips to church, because that's what you do when you are a devout Catholic like she is. She made us chicken enchiladas, chile rellenos, arroz mexicano, and dos salsa ricas, tortillas hecha a mano, and brought them over, and some kind of cake with frosting and fresh fruit on it. And we have been eating this delicious homemade Mexican food since Friday. Yeah. And it has been such a blessing, because obviously my hands are broken, so I can't really cook. They're not really broken, but it was just, sometimes you just don't want to go into the kitchen or go to the store. And Yeah, my kids are gone. So, I mean, normally I probably would just eat a sandwich for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, and a sandwich for dinner. Or I'd make one sandwich, just cut it into 3 pieces so I wouldn't have to make 3 sandwiches. But it's been so nice. But I did tell Cheryl today that I am having a very angry Mexican food reaction today. And so things have just been really crazy, starting out with a serious clogging of the toilet this morning that my husband had to get the plunger for. And I feel like that we should change the title of this episode to the Poop Chronicles. Or how about the Poop Files? Remember, instead of what was
Forensic
that?
Files? Forensic Files.
Yeah, or X-Files. It's like the Poop Files with Cheryl and Joy.
Oh man.
Oh my God, too funny. And then also my second, so thank you, Maria, for the delicious food. It's so good, Cheryl. Green salsa, red salsa, queso fresco. I mean, it's so yummy. Yeah. But I also have to shout out that besides being Easter, today is 420. 420! What? Cheryl, what kind of shout outs do you have?
I have a shout out to the grocery store I go to for their scones.
You're really digging deep, girl. Scones.
No, you know why?
Why? Because you really love a flour product?
No, because do you like scones, or have you had, I mean, I'm sure you've had a scone, right?
I do like scones, but they're not, I wouldn't cross the road for one. I wouldn't, get out of bed for one.
The reason I'm saying that is because I love scones and I've tried them wherever I go if they have one, right? And I've had them from where it seems like it's more of a bread, and then all the way to whatever. They just make it to me. They make it the way I like it, and which is not too sweet, because I lived in London for a little while, and the scones there are not very sweet.
Huh. But you can put
as you're typing,
you can put clotted cream and jam on it, though, because that's what, in England, that's what they give you with scones, is the clotted cream and the jam.
I just like it plain. I like that it's not sweet.
Oh, see, I like the clotted cream and the jam.
Well, I don't know if I've ever had clotted cream.
Well, it's basically a tasty butter.
I'm going to have to try that. I really didn't even know what that was. Just only that it sounded really nasty.
Yeah. I was trying to, well, I'll tell you that I'm going to take my husband to tea, and they have like finger sandwiches and clotted cream, and he's already made as many jokes as he can using the word finger and the word clotted. So, yeah. So anyway, stand by for that.
You're taking him to like a tea place?
Yeah, like to a hotel. It's like, remember when I went to New York last fall and I went to have tea at the Whidbey, and that you get to pick out the kind of tea you want. You even get to pick a pretty like teacup. And
I know. So, I've heard it's not my cup of tea. Get it? Poor Gabe.
So I'm taking my husband, and we're meeting some friends there. So I'm really looking forward to it. And then I can wear the garden party dress I was going to wear at Easter to the tea, since he's sick and I didn't get to do anything else. I mean, it's not that I didn't get to, I just didn't do anything else besides eat Mexican food and poop.
Why do I feel like the husbands are being dragged to the shindig?
Well, it's important for husbands to try new things, just like sometimes it's important for wives to try new things. And people.
Is Gabe excited about this?
I mean, it's better. He said yes, it's better than dancing.
Oh, God. Well, he hasn't done it yet. Let's ask for his opinion after he's finished.
Yeah. Oh, that will be fun. We could have him on the podcast and ask him about having tea.
Tea experience. I bet he'll love that.
Yep. I bet there'll be lots of jokes, inappropriate jokes with the word finger and the word clotted.
As it should be.
Yep. Well, guys, this week, even if you thought we were going to be talking about poop or about clotted cream or about finger sandwiches, we're not. We're actually going to be talking about May-December relationships. And because I'm not a therapist, just remember that this is my own research and nothing to do with, like I'm not a professional.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not a marriage counselor by any stretch of the imagination. My research comes from all-powerful Google. It comes from IMDb. It comes from Wikipedia. And it also comes from Rotten Tomatoes. So, do you Rotten Tomato movies, Cheryl?
No.
Oh. Well,
remember,
I do.
You can't trust any of that.
Well,
Oscars are being given out like candy.
Yeah, willy-nilly. They're just handing that shit out left and right.
Yep.
Well, I'm here to tell you that we watched Conclave this weekend, and I did IMDb it. I mean, I did Rotten Tomato it just to see.
Rotten Tomato it.
Yeah, I Rotten Tomato it because I wanted. It got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Well, what did Honora get? 100.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't look into that one yet.
No.
But my guess is it probably did pretty good. Rotten Tomatoes gave it the same 93%. Anywho.
Exactly. So
whatever. So let's get into it. Okay. Age gap love stories. First of all, I want to talk about this because I've noticed, Cheryl, that, and we've talked about this, that lately there's been a huge increase, at least to me, of movies that feature older women and younger men.
Yeah,
and
yay.
Obviously, I know that on sites such as Pornhub and like all the different porn sites, adult film sites, it's a kink. They have like, you can like, I don't know, categories like plow your granny or something like that. So, and it's like some of them are really, really older women, like women who are, in their 70s, for example. 60s. So, what?
60s.
Yeah. There's a woman who is 60 and she's Asian. She's practically dead. Anyway, so I will say that one of the reasons these movies are popular is because they offer a unique story, a unique narrative. It explores power dynamics and it challenges social norms because let's face it, we live in a society that doesn't seem to blink an eye if the man is older and the woman is younger. And I mean substantially. And it allows audiences to explore themes of maturity and experience, but also it allows audiences to kind of step out of the norm sometimes. And, because again, we're all so conditioned to see George Clooney play opposite a woman who's in her 30s. And we all know the man is not in his 30s. As attractive and hot as George Clooney can be to some women. So anyway, these stories also provide a sense of escapism and fantasy, allowing audiences to indulge in unconventional romantic scenarios without fear of being judged, without fear of people saying things, without snarky comments. Because if you're married to someone, Cheryl, let's say you were married to somebody who was like Anna Nicole Smith got married when she was in her 20s to a 96-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, he looked 96 when she married him. He wasn't a young 96. He wasn't like someone who was like, able to pass themselves off, with good hair dye and Botox as being 20 years younger. He was in a wheelchair. He was no longer able to walk. He was, quite elderly. But if you, let's say you were married to an 85-year-old, I mean, people would probably look at that and be like, wow, you're quite young compared to your spouse. And so, it allows people to like fantasize about this if it's something that they find exciting or titillating or, something they like to do, date older people.
Do we know why it's called a May-December relationship?
Yeah, because the woman is in December in the like twilight of her years, and he is a spring person,
Chicken?
like a spring chicken. That's right. So a very famous age gap love relationship that we are exposed to on the constant is Emmanuel Macron, who is the president of France. He is married to Brigitte Macron, and she is 25 years his senior. So it's attracted controversy because when they got together, he was a minor. And he has often described it as a love often clandestine, often hidden, and misunderstood by many before imposing itself. And he was also her student, is my understanding. Don't quote me on that. But he was definitely going to a school where she was a teacher. Maybe he wasn't her exact student, but he was a student at the school. Again, they're both French. So maybe there's different rules in France regarding like the age of consent. For example, in, I believe, North Carolina, the age of consent is 16. That means you are considered an adult at 16. You can, I think that means you can get married at 16.
Wow, that's so young.
Yeah, I'm from the West Coast where it was 18. So that even those 2 years felt like it was way too many years for me. I feel like 18 is good, but whatever. So, there is, there's a list of movies that I just want to shout out that have come out in 2023 and 2024. And it surprised me because I felt like there was a lot more movies recently of this nature. Now, if we think about in the past, there are some real like standouts. Like The Graduate is one of the earliest films, at least that I can think of, that I had seen when I was watching movies, when I was younger, where it detailed a very sexual relationship between a young Dustin Hoffman and an older Anne Bancroft. And that movie was made in 1967. Did you ever see The Graduate?
I did, but I don't really remember it other than that. Yeah, that mean. Did they have a relationship though?
Or no, was it just, it was more just sexual.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And then, of course, a huge cult classic that came out in 1971
Harold and Maude.
Is Harold and Maude with Bud
Cort. I thought you weren't going to talk about this.
With Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon. And
one of the best movies, you guys.
Guess
if
what,
you have not seen it.
It is a cult classic, and I will say that I find it more a comedy than I find it a romance. But
that's true. Well, it's Ruth Gordon. She makes that movie, and only people of a certain age will know who she is. It's what I love about it so much is because she's just a gem of a person. The character she played was so endearing, and that's what he fell in love with. Like, he was in his 20s, she was going to be 80, and he fell in love with her because she was so special. And so you could overlook it. Anyway, well, yes, it was very funny too.
I have to say that I think the thing that I found the most off-putting about this movie was that Bud Cort looked like he was 15.
Well, was in his 20s, and the character was like early 20s, and I think he was.
Oh,
older
I thought
than
he was a 17-year-old in the movie.
I thought he was in his 20s.
Well, we'll have to do some digging. Well, guess what? I'm just curious. Don't look at my document. What percentage do you think that Harold and Maude got on Rotten Tomatoes? Did you already
80s.
look?
Yeah, but I was going to say 80s, and I see 86.
Yeah.
Which is fair. It's not for everyone. I mean, 86 is pretty high, but
the Graduate got 87%, which I would have thought that movie would have gotten more than that. Although I agree with you, it doesn't stand out in my mind.
Also, the soundtrack to Harold and Maude is Cat Stevens. It's just a wonderful film. If you guys haven't seen it, you have to see it. That's all I can say.
Well, another shout out to a classic is How Stella Got Her Groove Back. That was Angela Bassett and Taye Diggs. And that came out in 1998, and that only got 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I will tell you that I read that book, and the book was pretty good. So they kind of fell into that problem area where the book does really well, the movie doesn't do very well. But that was my introduction to Taye Diggs. I believe he was in a Janet Jackson music video, and then he was cast for that movie. And but one of the problems I had was I used to live in Jamaica. She goes to Jamaica. That's where she gets a groove back. And I could not get behind Taye Diggs' accent. The groove.
Oh.
I couldn't get behind his groove. That's right. No, I don't know, but he was fine. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. I think I enjoyed it. I mean,
I don't know if he's fine now because I haven't really followed his career, but he was fine in 1998.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when you really know an accent, like you and I have spoken about this before, when somebody does a terrible pidgin accent. So in Hawaii, there's a slang. It's a pidgin accent. It's very hard to explain. It just sounds like bad English. And we watched. Who is it? Rob Schneider in I think it's 51st Dates.
51st
If you guys watched, that is the most horrible pidgin accent ever.
It's hilarious.
So don't judge. That is not what we sound like in Hawaii.
It's true.
But anyway, so you can be. It can be very off-putting.
I felt like they should have called that movie "How Taye Diggs got his shirt off." Because I wasn't focused on Stella getting her groove back at all. But anyway, well, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little more detailed look at the reasons why these kinds of movies are popular. First of all, the issue of power dynamics and maturity. Older characters often portray a sense of authority and experience, which can be very, very attractive. For example, I was in my 20s when I saw one of Cheryl's favorite movies, The Bridges of Madison County. Now, I had read the book by, I believe it was James Waller was his name. Don't quote me on that. And I loved the book, and I was so... Now, remember, when you read a book, your mind can go anywhere. And when I found out who they had cast for the movie, I was disappointed because I didn't think that either of those people were going to be, they weren't who I had in my head. And also, I really, really, really wanted them to cast Isabella Rossellini as the main role that Meryl Streep took because she actually has an Italian accent and she would have been perfect.
I think she would have been perfect.
Yeah, but also remember I was in my 20s, so watching two middle-aged people get boners for each other just didn't do it for me. It was like thinking about your parents doing it, and it just was like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a movie it depends where you are in your life, because you hated it at first, right? And then you saw it and you said you liked it, and then I don't know how you feel about it now, but
I like it now because we're the same age.
Right. You can relate or you can imagine. Yeah. But
Yeah,
when you're 20, it probably just seems gross, right?
right. But I will say that watching that movie when I was in my 20s, I felt like they had a sense of experience and authority. Being older, being my parents' age, I just felt like it's okay for him to go to her house and then for her to have an affair on her husband and blah 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 because they are older and they have authority and they have experience.
Oh, interesting. So you saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the portrayal of a younger character navigating a relationship with someone older can also be seen as a commentary on societal expectations and power imbalances. And we've talked
Hmm.
about that power imbalance, or the abuse of power in some of those relationships, like we've talked in the past about Monica Lewinsky, and
Hmm.
how if that relationship had been conducted today, he would have lost his job.
Hmm.
Like that wouldn't have been Congress wouldn't have just impeached him or whatever, or the Senate wouldn't have impeached him and, then whatever. I think Congress impeached him and the Senate overturned it or something like that. And so he was allowed to stay in office.
Yeah.
We also, yeah. So anyway, the other thing is, it challenges conventions. Age gap relationships often disrupt the traditional narrative of a romance, which can be refreshing for viewers and for people because think about it, we always see the same story. They challenge
Right.
the idea that love is solely based on age and allow for more complex and nuanced relationships to be explored. Um,
That what you just said, it is exactly why Harold and Maude works so,
hmm,
because it has nothing to do with what she looks like. She's not, she's going to be 80. She's not like this hot, because some people, there are women that are in their 60s and whatever can be still be hot and attractive, but Ruth Gordon, while she's very cute, she's not hot, right? And so it's a complex relationship, but it's
yeah.
because of her character and who she is. But anyway, I just had to jump in because that's so true.
Yep. Um, the next reason they're popular is for escapism and fantasy. Movies allow audiences to indulge in fantasies and imagine alternative scenarios without the real world consequences. Age gap relationships, in particular, offer a sense of escapism and allow viewers to explore different perspectives on love and relationship. Um, and then the next one is normalizing and reducing stigma. Movies that normalize age gap relationships can potentially reduce societal stigma and promote understanding and acceptance of these relationships in the real world. So, like, if you were in a relationship with a man who was like 25, we would all call you um, Harold and Maude.
Lucky. Oh.
Yeah, we'd be like, "How's your Harold doing?" Lucky. Did you just say lucky? And then finally, reflection of real life relationships. Age gap relationships, while often presented in a fantastical way in movies, are also a reflection of real life relationships, which can be a source of fascination and intrigue for viewers. And one of the movies that does hit on that source of fascination on a fantastical way is it was the movie The Idea of You with Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine. Please excuse me if I'm butchering the pronunciation of your name. I know you didn't watch it because you don't like Anne Hathaway, but it was on Amazon. And what happens is she is the mom of a teenager who's 17 or 18, and her daughter is obsessed with this boy band and not so unlike a K-pop band or, like NSYNC or something like that back when we were younger. Actually, not when we were younger, but that was actually past us. For us, it would be like the Osmonds and the Jackson 5. And but we didn't have social media and no one was going to take me to see one of those concerts. So this daughter of hers is like obsessed with this boy band, and somehow her mom, played by Anne Hathaway, meets one of the guys in the band. Now remember, they call them boy bands, but a lot of times they're not 17, 18, 19 years old, which these young girls are lusting after them. They portray them as being younger, but this boy, I think, was 20. I think he was 24 in the movie, or maybe between 24 and 27. And she's like 42, I think. She plays someone who either just turned 40 or 40, between 40 and 42. So she's not 100, she's not 80.
Right. Yeah,
She's no
40.
Ruth Gordon.
Right.
But he's in a boy band, so he's super famous. So obviously navigating this situation is like, yeah, when is that really going to happen? When are you going to ever bump into, a 25, that would be like you bumping into Justin Bieber. I don't even know how old the Biebs is, but you just
put bumping like 30
into
now.
Yeah, he's too old. Pick a 25 pick a 25-year-old that you randomly bump into, and all of a sudden he's jetting you off to Saint-Tropez, for a weekend in the sun.
Well, do you remember John Travolta when he was in his 20s? When he was at his prime after Welcome Back, Kotter, and I don't know when Staying Alive or Saturday Night Fever, I don't know when all of that came in. But remember, he was really in love with that woman named Diane. She was in her 40s. I mean, really in love. Huh. And she died, and it was devastating for him. Yeah. So she was about 20 years older than him.
Pierce Brosnan was in a relationship. Before, when he was in Remington Steele, and she died.
Was she older?
Her name was Cassandra Harris. Yeah, I think she was considerably older. She died of ovarian cancer, and then the daughter that they had, I believe, also died of ovarian cancer.
So tragic.
So crazy. Anyway, off topic. But so here's the list of movies that have been out in the last year to 2 years. The first is, I'm sure there's others, but these are the ones I'm shouting out. Baby Girl, starring Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson. That came out this last year in 2024. The Idea of You, which we just talked about. May December, which is actually literally about Mary Kay Letourneau and Billy Falau. And it's starring Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. And we actually talked about this not too long ago, right, Cheryl? Maybe in season 1, we talked about this movie. And,
yeah.
And
I don't remember what season, but we talked about it. Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie a 91%. Which is great.
I rest my case because I did not like this movie.
I was blown away. So that means you'd like Baby Girl, because they only gave it a 76%. Anyway, Lonely Planet, which I watched about 35 to 40 minutes of and then fell asleep. It's Laura Dern and Liam Hemsworth. It's just painful. The dialogue is painful. And Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 40%. A Family Affair, which is Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron. That came out in 2024. I actually made it. I think I actually watched the whole thing, but I had to fast forward certain parts because it was so bad. And I was just, what I was mesmerized with by this film, because both of them have had extensive
cosmetic
procedures done. Mm-hmm. I just wondered the whole time they were showing like the makeout scenes and stuff. I kept wondering if it felt the same, because they've had these
procedures.
Yeah, because they've had these procedures. And you know what? Good for you. Like, go for it. Anyway, Rotten Tomatoes gave that a 35%, which is by far the lowest rating. The next
I'll probably love it then.
Yeah, that's right. The next is Bridget Jones's Diary, number 4. It's called Mad About the Boy, which I did not see, but I will see in the near future. That's Renee Zellweger and Leo Woodall, who, by the way, I don't know if you know who Leo Woodall is, but he is cute. He reminds me of a better looking Simon. Remember that blonde actor named Simon something that was in The Mentalist, and we thought he was so cute?
The Mentalist?
Or The Survivalist, or The Rapist? I don't remember. Show on TV. His name was Simon something. He was so cute. Deceitful Love, starring Monica Guerritore. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And Giacomo Gianotti. It's an Italian film. And then the last one, which I have to say is such a good movie. Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, with Emma Thompson and Daryl McCormack. And that got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. And you saw it and you liked it.
I did. Yeah. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I did like it.
It is. I went back and rewatched it. It's so good. If anybody out there wants a dialogue heavy film, it's about an older woman, Emma Thompson. She plays someone who, to me, appears very age appropriate for the age that she is. And her husband has died 2 years before. She's very lonely. She was never sexually fulfilled. And she hires a male escort, a male sex worker, to meet her in a hotel room and do things on a list that apparently her husband was not willing to do or try. And the dialogue is really, really good. She has to work through a lot of her own stigma and a lot of her own self-loathing to get to a place of acceptance. And then, it was very well done.
Yeah, she's excellent in it. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but she was very good in it.
I am a huge Emma Thompson fan. I can't believe you just said that. God, I've never seen anything that she's not amazing in.
I like her. I'm just not a huge fan.
She was actually in Love. She was the best role in Love Actually, and that movie was shite. So I can't believe you're not a huge fan of hers. Oh my God. Anyway,
she's good though.
I will say that there are a lot of questions for those of you listening to this. If you're considering an age gap relationship, there are a lot of things that you should think about. And here are some of the things, okay? What are your core values and beliefs, and how do these values influence your relationship? So, for example, if you're in a relationship where there's a huge age gap and you think that that is something gross or not good, then you should probably not be in this relationship, because you're going to be stigmatizing your own relationship. What are your individual and collective goals? So you and the person you're in a relationship with going forward, if your goals don't match up, like if one person is planning for retirement and the other person is planning to have some children, you should probably move on, because you're not going to end up at the same, like you're not going to hit the winning mark at the same time. How do you envision your lives together right now and down the road? If you don't want to spend a lot of time going to doctor's appointments, you probably should think about that, because as we get older, we have to have more stuff patched up. It's just the facts of life, right? And if you don't believe me, get a pet, because when that pet hits 17 or 18 years old, you're going to be spending a lot of time going to the vet. I mean, these are just the facts, folks. Seriously, right, Cheryl?
Yes, it's very true.
What percentage of animals just walking through the forest drop dead? So few. Like, that just doesn't happen. Right. So anyway, are there any significant differences in your family planning or career trajectories? I just said this. How will you navigate these differences? If you want to have kids and the person you're in a relationship with has had a vasectomy or has already had kids, or they're 65 and are worried about not being able to pick the child up. I mean, remember, it takes a lot of energy to have children. Robert De Niro has a 2-year-old and the man is like 81 or something like that. 79, something like that.
He probably pays someone else to pick it up.
Right. Do you have similar energy levels and recreational ideas? Can you find common grounds for activities you enjoy together? And by activities, it's like, if you're really into CrossFit, can your 80-year-old partner join you in CrossFit? If you're a marathon runner, if you're into aqua Zumba because you like to stand in the pool and wave your arms around, but your partner likes to swim, in Ironman competitions. I mean, just think about that.
So wait, I have a question. What do you consider a huge age gap, or an age gap that's considerable?
I feel like 15 years is my cutoff. So like if you're 15 years and under, that's not so crazy. If you're 16 and over, then it's kind of getting into, like that's almost hitting 2 decades. And 2 decades is, it's a big spread. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a decade isn't that big a deal up to, and so yeah, I think 15. That
Right.
sounds about right. I think anything up until then, it's like, that doesn't sound like that much.
Yeah, that's right. How will you support each other through potential career changes, retirement, or other significant life transitions? Are you prepared for the possibility of facing unique challenges related to end of life concerns or the passing of a partner? And what role will your children, if any, play in your relationship? Because if you think about it, if you're running out to take the kids to the park, anyone who's taken a 3 or 4-year-old to the park knows that's a full body experience. You gotta chase them. You gotta like climb to the top of the play structure. You gotta push them in the swings for 45 minutes. And that might be hard if you're in a wheelchair. So, or using a walker. Have you discussed your financial assets, debts, and how you'll manage your finances together? That is huge. How do you both feel about your relationship with families and friends? Because people can be so judgmental. Imagine if your daughter or son, Cheryl, came home and said, "This is my partner," and they're in their 20s and someone 60 comes out of the other room.
Right.
Are you both willing to embrace a diverse, open-minded approach to your relationship, recognizing it may not fit into traditional expectations and also cultural expectations? Because if it's someone from another culture, everybody has different beliefs on what's acceptable versus what's not. And what steps can you take to build a strong, supportive, fulfilling relationship that transcends the age gap? So, just some things to think about. By openly addressing these questions, having honest conversations, couples in age gap relationships can build a foundation for a less lasting relationship. So, now I'm going to turn the question to Cheryl. How old is the oldest person
fun.
you dated? Like, what was the age spread? So, like, were you 20 and were they 50?
I think the oldest person was only 6 years older than me.
Oh, that's not crazy.
Uh-huh.
Huh. And what about
How about you?
I was 28 and he was 51, maybe. I remember, well, actually going back, I remember being like 22 or 23 and going out with a guy. He lived in my apartment building and his apartment was right over kind of this walkway when you walked in, so you could always see because my parking spot was right there. Talk about like stalking. I mean, he was not a stalker, thank God, but it was a perfect setup for a stalker because he could see when I pulled into my parking spot, I had to walk through this. I could walk around the apartment, but the shortest way to my apartment and to check the mail on the way there was to walk through this kind of like open breezeway area. And all I remember is he wore a lot of jeans on jeans combo. So like he'd wear like the denim shirt because it was the 90s denim shirt with like the Levi 501s. And he asked me, he was very slick. He asked me if I knew of any good Korean restaurants in the area. And he must have asked somebody my ethnicity. And I said, "Oh, the closest one is in Berkeley." And this was when I lived in California and when we lived in Northern California. And he's like, "Hey, you want to go sometime and check it out?" And I was like, "Well, I've been there before, but yeah, that sounds like fun." I go, "I'm always down to go have Korean food." And we went to Korean food. And I still didn't really know if this was a date because of the way he'd asked me. And I said, "How do you like Korean food?" Because at that point, this was pre social media. This was pre, mukbangs. Korean food was not like a global phenomenon like it is now, where it's very
Right.
sensational, to eat different kinds of foods. And he said, "Oh, I was in Korea in 68 and 69 during the war."
Oh gosh.
And obviously he was there as an enlisted service person. And and he goes, "When were you in Korea?" And I said, "Well, I was born in 68 in Korea." And he was like, "Oh," he goes, "I figured I was a little bit older than you." So
A little.
of course, doing the math, he was at least 18 years older than me,
Right.
because you have to be 18 to be in the military, right?
Right, yeah.
So I was like, "Oh." And I remember thinking, I'm basically out to lunch with someone who could be my dad. And then later on, I found out that it was a date, because when the bill came, he was like, "No, I asked you to lunch." But he was real slick about it. And we went out a couple more times after that. I don't remember how many times. I'm sure it's in my diary. But I had not, that was the first time I went out with someone who was considerably older.
But the relationship that you had when you were 28 and the guy was in his 50s, how was that?
We dated a couple of years. It was okay. He'd been married like 3 times, so I definitely knew it was not going to be a long-term thing.
Long-term, yeah, because you wanted a family and stuff, right?
Yeah, and also, I mean, I did towards the end of the relationship, but also, yeah, I mean, at that point in my life, I wasn't looking for marriage. I was just looking to have a nice time. I mean, honestly.
Okay.
And then after him, I dated a guy who was 21 and I was 33.
Okay.
But,
21 and 33 is what? 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was single, he was single. I just remember saying, "You probably should date somebody closer to your own age." It made me feel old.
Yeah. Yeah. So the youngest, I don't remember exactly what ages we were. Believe he was in his late 20s and he's probably 29 and I was 40 or something. So I know there was an 11 year
Wow.
age. But yeah, you feel,
I remember he looked really young though.
yeah, and I think he found someone younger. So that was, although I don't feel like 11 years is that much. I don't feel like it's that, whatever.
Nah, it's not. It's really not. I will say
Although
that
somebody who's 11 years younger than me now would be 49, and that does sound too young. I don't know, it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 years younger than me now would be 44. See, I don't feel like that sounds that young. But but it's different like if it was 40. Nah, not really. 52? No. But you know when it would sound really bad? 59 and 71. That's when it would sound crazy. Right?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I really don't.
I will say that
wait. I have a question. And does it matter? Like, is your opinion different whether it's the man that's older or the woman that's older in a 59, 71, 59, 70?
Oh, I feel like I have to be honest, now that I'm older, I feel like it would, if the man was that much older, it would seem like a lot. And if the woman was older, it would seem like a lot. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not 12 years older than my spouse. My spouse not 12 years older than me. So I think you have to be in that relationship. We have friends where the woman is 13 years older than the man, I think. And it doesn't stand out to me. It really doesn't. It's about the relationship. It's about, it's I'm so much more open-minded about it as I get older because it's their relationship and it
Me
works
too.
for them. So who am I to say whether or not, I will say this. If you're in a relationship with someone in their 20s and you bring them to a dinner party in my house, with all the other people who are my age or around my age, it's probably not gonna they're probably not gonna have a lot in common. They're probably
Right.
gonna get bored and want to leave. They're probably gonna not understand why a party's over at 9:30. They're probably gonna wonder why everyone's wearing house slippers.
Right.
They're they're probably going to be like, why aren't there any spicy hot peppers in this salsa? I mean, they're going to also wonder why everyone's having decaf with dessert. I mean, there's a whole list of things. They're going to wonder why the men have to pee before they hit the road, just like the women have to pee. I mean, if you think about it, like as we get older, there's a bunch of shit we got to take care of, and it's not like when you're young,
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But
but
if
it
you
is.
brought someone to a party who was in like, so let's go the other direction. That's what, 40 years? If you brought someone to a party who was 95, I mean, that
I
person.
know. What would you? Okay, picture each scenario, Joy. Me showing up to your garden party with somebody in their 20s, or me showing up to a garden party with somebody in their, let's say, 80s.
Well,
Which
if you
would
showed
you
up with
be?
someone in your 80s, it depends on how you showed up. If you showed up pushing in a wheelchair, I'd probably think that you'd brought your boss or something, or like, it was a caregiver situation.
Let's say a healthy 85, where he's got all his faculties and he's walking and talking. Okay. What would surprise you more, a 25-year-old
He's
or
walking around the
85-year-old?
crowd going, I want to introduce you to my girlfriend, Yoko Ono. She wants me to call her Cheryl. I mean, you know what? If that's working for you and for that person, then it's working for you,
No, but I'm just saying, which would you have more of a reaction, or for however you want to define reaction?
Well, let's put it this way.
25-year-old,
I'd have
25-year-old, 85.
I'd have a lot more fun. I'd have a lot more fun at the party with the 85-year-old because that person has made it to 85. I could probably crack jokes about the age difference. I could probably crack jokes about, diapers and Metamucil and being to bed. And I mean, at 8 p.m. and eating a half a sandwich and turning up the hearing aid, because that person would probably have heard all those jokes before and would be on board and have a little shtick even. Whereas I feel like if you showed up with a 20-something, I would be able to have a lot more fun after the party, because then I could pull out all the jokes I couldn't crack in front of the 29-year-old or 28-year-old, because a 28-year-old doesn't have that developed sense of humor yet, because remember, they haven't been through all those facets of age. And they're probably a little defensive that there is this big age gap.
Yeah, I think it'd be much more acceptable, right? I think you would be less concerned about me if I was with the 85-year-old versus the 25-year-old.
But if you're a 27 or 28 or 29-year-old and you're involved with somebody in their late 50s or early 60s, reach out and let us know, because I would like to know if you are not defensive at all, and if you do think those jokes are funny and you could take it on the chin because you're used to hearing all that kind of stuff. Because I find that people get really protective of those relationships, and so they would probably not find those jokes funny. Whereas, I talked to a man in his 80s whose wife had died, who is dating online, and he was hilarious. But he's also doing something he's never done before, never thought he was going to have to do before. And he loved his wife very much, but she's no longer here. And he had to go online to go on dates with women. And he doesn't want, doesn't know how long he has, so he doesn't want to spend that time alone.
So sad. Okay, what do you know? It'd be fascinating to ask him what his age category is that he puts in there. What his range is.
He said 70 to 85, which 85 is his age, and so the 15 years holds true.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it would be different if he was a woman.
I wonder. But the women don't seem, but he is very, very healthy, very spry, very agile. Does not seem like, I mean, I don't know what 85 looks like because I'm not 85. But when I was talking to him, he was very hip. He's an artist. He was dressed very nicely. He was so engaging and so funny and adorable and, flirtatious.
Maybe you should introduce us.
I know, right?
Is he 80 or 85?
He's 85.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's more than 15 years, so I don't know if he would be interested.
Give me his number and then I'll show up at your garden party and I'll get to see your true reaction.
That's right. I mean, I have to say that I was so proud of him though for going on the apps and
getting out there.
Yeah, putting himself out
there.
The
fact that he knows how to use an app is very impressive.
I know. And he was he was also super, super thinking outside the box. I feel like even young people could take some notes from this. I asked him, what kinds of dates have you done? And he said, we've gone dancing. He said, we've gone to a painting class. He said they went to a cooking class. He said they went to a mixed group where they all were playing games. It was like a gaming group. So yeah, anywho, that ends my documentation part of talking about May and December relationships. I wanted to just ask you really quickly, Cheryl, you talked about dating somebody who was 11 years younger. How long was that relationship? And did it ever come into play in your relationship?
Did what come into play?
The age difference.
Oh, the age. Oh, you mean what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I think it was about 4 years. And he was very mature as far as music, that wasn't from his generation. It was probably one of those things where he heard his parents listening to it. I don't know how that made me feel. But
he was comfortable with the fact that you used to date Beethoven.
Yeah, he knew who Beethoven was, so I was very impressed by that. But no, as far as spending time together and whatnot, the age difference I feel like it didn't come into play, although I do feel like it ended when he found someone younger. I don't have any proof of that. But that is a
interesting.
I'm going to say it's a pretty probably accurate guess. And it could just be an insecurity of him being 11 years younger, but I'm pretty sure he ended it because he found someone younger. So I don't think I ever thought that it was going to be long term. And probably because of the age difference.
Although 4 years is kind of long.
Yeah, it is, huh? I think it was about 4 years. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a few years. It was longer than I would think it would. Yeah, but I don't think. No, what am I now? 60? What did I say? 49? Yeah, I really don't think I would date someone 11 years younger now.
Huh? Really? How old would that be? That would make somebody
49.
So how about older? How old is the
maximum?
Yeah, like for example, you're 60.
Maybe and 70.
Really? Have you ever seen
What do you mean? Really? As in
have you ever seen a 70-year-old that you're attracted to?
No. Well, I mean, you mean in real life, or I mean, I don't know. I just off the top of my head, I would say 70. Just that would probably feel.
That's so interesting.
But you know what? You're absolutely right. I think a 15-year is not bad. So like 75 would still be okay, maybe. You know what I mean? Like after that, I think it's too much. But so I think 15 is a really good. Older though, not younger. I wouldn't be able to go younger.
Well, Liam Neeson's in his 70s. So's Pierce Brosnan. So's Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, see?
Yeah. So is Jerry Seinfeld. So is John Travolta. So is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So is your favorite, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I've talked about this, right? Yeah, on our favorite movies. When I was 14, I had a crush on Sylvester Stallone.
Yep. What about Kevin Costner, Denzel Washington, Bruce Willis, Rowan Atkinson, Jeff Daniels, Kelsey Grammer, Chris Noth, Gary Sinise, Corbin Burnson, remember him? Jim Belushi, John O'Hurley. Remember him?
No, who's that?
He played J.P. Waterman in Seinfeld. Yeah, that's it. All the rest of these guys are uggos.
Oh, okay. Wow. We'll just edit that part out.
Why? Anyway, guys, I bet if you're still listening,
if you're still with us,
if you haven't clicked off yet, I bet you're glad that we stopped talking about poop. But if you're still listening, it's a real crime. But you know what else is a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
That is a crime. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day. All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch managed by Cheryl Yamaguchi. Podcast editing, advertising, and social media managed by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezic. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible.com, Amazon Music, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok, or you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.